Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure to be back.
We spent a lot of time talking about the big names in history. The sort of the Alexanders, the Cleopatras.
Or Caesars.
Right, exactly. But what about those figures who maybe didn't get quite the same spotlight, but still totally shaped their fields?
Yeah, the unsung heroes.
The ones who, without their contributions, history might have gone down a totally different path,
Absolutely.
So today we're doing exactly that, diving deep into the lives of some seriously impressive figures from the ancient world, folks you've probably never heard of.
Yeah, these are people who made waves in medicine, philosophy, literature.
Oh, we've even got military strategy and, get this, early earthquake detection.
That's right. It's going to be a wild ride through history.
So buckle up, everybody, and let's get started. Our first stop, ancient Greece.
Land of philosophers and
Gyros.
gyros, yes. Very important. But today we're focusing on a medical innovator, Praxagoras of Kos.
Praxagoras of Kos.
Oh.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What was medicine like back then?
Well, think Hippocrates, right?
Father of medicine, always.
Exactly. But even with those advancements, there were still some pretty big misconceptions floating around. People believed that arteries carried both blood and the air.
Blood and air in the same, tube.
Yeah, and they thought the heart was basically a cooling system for the body.
Wild.
Okay.
Okay, so where does our guy Praxagoras fit into all of this?
So Praxagoras comes along and says, hold on a minute, something's not right here.
Yeah, because blood and air in the same tubes. That doesn't sound right.
He was the first to make a clear distinction between arteries and veins.
Aha.
He proposed that arteries carried this vital life force, what they called pneuma, and that the heart was the center of the circulatory system.
Wow. I mean, talk about a revolutionary idea. To figure that out without, all the fancy medical imaging we have today.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It paved the way for later discoveries about blood circulation and how our bodies actually work. He really was a pioneer.
Huge kudos to Praxagoras.
Okay, from ancient Greece, we're jumping ahead a few centuries to Roman Egypt.
And this time, we are meeting a woman who, well, she broke a lot of glass ceilings.
Oh, this has got to be Hypatia of Alexandria.
That's right, Hypatia. Philosopher, mathematician, and a true trailblazer for women in academia.
I feel like we don't hear enough about women like her in history.
Absolutely. Especially considering the time she lived in where women were largely excluded from intellectual pursuits.
Right. It was like a boys' club.
Totally.
Yeah.
But Hypatia, she didn't let that stop her. Not only was she a brilliant scholar in her own right, writing commentaries on super complex mathematical and philosophical works.
Yeah, she was head of the Neoplatonic school of thought.
Exactly. Leading the philosophical discussions, debating with the best of them. Imagine that.
Okay, real quick though. For those of us who, slept through Philosophy 101, what is Neoplatonism again?
Oh, right. Good point. Basically, it's a philosophical system that believes in a single supreme source of goodness and beauty, and everything else flows from that. Okay, so a hierarchy of existence.
Kinda. And they were big on the idea of using reason and contemplation to reach a higher spiritual understanding.
Heady stuff. And Hypatia was at the forefront of it all, in a society that, well, didn't exactly welcome women's contributions.
Sadly, her story has a tragic ending. Hypatia was murdered by a Christian mob, likely because of the political and religious tensions of the time. It really makes you think about those who challenge the status quo, especially women in positions of power, and the dangers they face.
It's a stark reminder that the struggle for intellectual freedom, especially for women, has been a long and often really dangerous journey.
No doubt. Okay, ready for another time jump? This time we're going way back to ancient Sumer.
Ooh, even older than the Greeks.
Yep. We're talking about 4,000 years ago, and we're meeting a woman named Enheduanna. Ready for this? She's considered the world's first known author.
Whoa, the world's first author. Talk about a legacy. So what did she write? Ancient Sumerian grocery lists?
Not quite. Enheduanna was the high priestess of the moon god Nanna.
Okay, so a pretty big deal.
Hugely influential. And her writings were mainly hymns and prayers, very symbolic, full of emotion, meant to be used in religious ceremonies.
So she was shaping the spiritual landscape of her time.
Exactly. Her writing wasn't just art, it was a way to solidify her authority and influence.
Powerful stuff. What do her writings tell us about life back then in Sumer?
So much. They give us a window into their beliefs about the cosmos, the role of the gods, the importance of rituals. It's incredible to be able to connect with someone who lived so long ago.
Yeah, it's like reading a diary from 4,000 years ago.
And it really challenges what we think we know about women in ancient societies.
Right, I mean, she was clearly a major player, not just in religion, but in politics, too.
She reminds us that women have always been shaping history, even if those stories don't always get told.
Speaking of women who shaped history, I think it's time to introduce another powerful female figure. This time, one who didn't just rule a kingdom, but commanded a fleet of warships.
Oh, you must be talking about Artemisia of Caria. Now, there was a woman who knew how to make a statement.
What can you tell us about her?
So, Artemisia was a queen and a skilled naval commander. She fought alongside the Persians in the Battle of Salamis against the Greeks, and even though her side lost, her tactical brilliance was so impressive that the Greek historian Herodotus actually praised her in his writings.
That's pretty huge, getting props from your enemy. What made her such a brilliant strategist?
Well, she was known for being super cunning and decisive. Like during the Battle of Salamis, when the Persian fleet was getting crushed, she realized their only option was to escape.
Makes sense. Live to fight another day.
Right, but to avoid capture, she did something totally unexpected. She rammed one of her own allied ships and sank it. The Greeks thought she was defecting to their side, giving her the chance to escape with the rest of her ships.
Wow, talk about a power move. She must have had nerves of steel.
Absolutely. That takes serious guts and strategic thinking. She wasn't afraid to break the rules of conventional warfare, and it worked.
Artemisia is a perfect example of a woman who just blew past any expectations and showed everyone what she was capable of in a male-dominated world.
A true leader, no matter the time period.
All right, ready for our last deep dive? Let's head to ancient China.
Okay, let's do it.
I've heard we're about to meet a true Renaissance man, astronomer, inventor, writer.
You're talking about Heng, a polymath who was way ahead of his time.
What was his claim to fame?
He was a man of many talents, but his invention of the seismoscope really stands out.
Hold on, a seismoscope? You're telling me he built a device to detect earthquakes back then?
You heard that right. Over 1,800 years ago, he created a device that could detect earthquakes happening hundreds of miles away.
That's insane. How did something like that even work back then?
It's a little unclear exactly how it worked, but we know it was a big bronze vessel with 8 dragon heads all around it, each holding a bronze ball in its mouth.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When an earthquake happened, the vibrations would make one of those balls drop from a dragon's mouth into a bronze toad sitting below. The direction the ball fell would indicate the direction of the earthquake.
So basically, an ancient earthquake detector. That predates similar tech in the West by centuries.
Right. It challenges the whole Eurocentric view of history and shows us that advanced science was happening all over the world.
Exactly. These stories really open your eyes to how much we can learn from other cultures.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into these amazing, often forgotten figures, I have a question for our listeners. Who are the unsung heroes in your world, in your field, in your community?
Yeah, whose stories are waiting to be told? Whose contributions deserve a little more recognition? It's up to all of us to dig a little deeper, to look beyond the familiar names and uncover those hidden gems of history. Because you never know what incredible stories are just waiting to be discovered. Until next time.
Happy exploring, everyone!